Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to Breed to Succeed. Proudly brought to you by Barastoc, Kentucky Equine Research. I apologise, I've actually got one too many logos up there, but we'll fix that one up now. And also Empire Stallions. This week, Andrew, you are well and truly on the camera, mate. So yeah, you're looking like a statue, but you better look to the other one for me, Mr. Andrew Soper. It will be better if you look at that little one, mate. It will make it a lot easier. Great to have you guys back. We're hoping for some people to get involved with a lot of interaction as we bring today's show to you. I said it's been brought to us by Empire Stallions, and one lucky winner today will be winning a $750 voucher to any of these 5 stallions here in front of me. Betting line: 4-Star Shark, Heston Blue Chip, Stay Hungry, who a horse we featured last week in with Nick Hooper, and Well Said, who's doing quite a good job actually. Well Said, they throw nice little type, so well done to Empire Stallions for getting involved. Firstly, guys, welcome back. How was the feedback from last time, Beck? You were
yeah, it was good.
Happy with the feedback?
Yeah, sure.
I got a lot of trouble because I didn't have you in focus on the camera, so people told me off for that and the likes. I get into trouble all the time, don't I, Andrew?
Yeah, that's one word for it, Paulie. Yeah, you're always in trouble. It's just the depth that varies, apparently, but that just goes with your job, I suppose.
Does indeed, mate. One of the great things that Barastoc do for us, and you reckon I'd be ready to have the camera there. You're on that other camera there, mate. Last week's winner, we got to announce. We had quite a lot of interaction last week, and I think there was about 86 comments when we'd finished. I haven't had a look to see the total last week, and we want that sort of interaction this time. But last week's winner, I think, was voted by a couple of people, but all sort of tended to agree with Steve Johnson. And I think Steve is from Wagga, but I'm not 100% sure. But I think he's from New South Wales. So
that's correct. Yeah, we got Nick to pick out last week's winner because he was obviously involved in the talk. And
was he involved? I didn't hear him say anything.
He was there. he was doing his thing, flicking plenty of slides around. No, it was very informative, actually. It was a good talk. So Steve participated quite well with some very good questions. So Nick chose him out as the winner of the 10 bags of Breed and Grow this week. So congratulations, Steve. I'll be in contact. And
that's exactly what we want. We want people to get involved. Steve's actually already on. So is Sue Markle. So is Nick Hooper. And he's saying thank you to Empire Stallions, which is very well said. Nick, and we must say well done to them. We must also say well done to you guys at Barastoc. I think what you are doing for us is terrific, and getting people out there. We've had a little bit of feedback too. .Green or .G has put a post up today as well.
.G, yeah, she sent us through some messages today that she's picked up her 10 bags, and the horses were pretty keen to get into it by one of the pictures that she put up. So we've had some good feedback from the people that have got it, and Dot also has sent through some pictures of her mares, and we've been able to help her out with the condition of her mares. She wasn't real sure about the body scoring of them, so she was able to send us some pictures, and we could adjust the feeding of the mares that she had there at home. So that was a good thing for Dot. She's only fairly new to the breeding side of it, so it was good that she participated in that offer, and hopefully it helps her out and the mares.
Barastoc, have they been getting much feedback from the show? You've been getting a little bit of interaction?
Yeah, we have. It's been really good. It's from around the state. We've had good inquiries, and just general stuff. A lot of what we said at the last one that Beck and I participated in was just bringing things back to people's mind that they'd perhaps forgotten, about, that you sort of get a bit complacent and sort of get in your own little rut. So yeah, it was good to get some feedback from those, and hopefully some people ask some good questions today, and we can offer some good suggestions there as well.
One of the reasons I put that to you is because we actually want some interaction. We want interaction. You're back on camera. Beck can't see the cameras this time either, and we've already got that. .G. We've got our serial offenders, and I must say well done to you guys and keep it up. Sue Markwell said fantastic price by Empire. Steve Johnson said that's awesome. Big Les will be happy. I'm glad of that. And .G. Thanks again to Barastoc, which is exactly what we want. But we want interaction, and we're trying to get people involved. I've got both you guys' websites underneath your names there. BarastochHorse.com for Andrew, and KER, pretty simple one for Rebecca Ham, and even Kentucky Research. They pretty much copied us back. They did a live feed the other day as well with broodmare nutrition, but it's a different world we're in, and being able to get the word out this way, it's pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think having the opportunity to do things live is really beneficial because people can ask questions and get immediate sort of feedback as well, rather than just listening to us rattle on about something we might want to talk about.
Exactly, and we get steered by the participants
sure.
and all the rest, and they do flow on. We've got we're going to make sure this one flows on into next week, which I'll be catching up with Kath McIntosh at her farm in as far as OCDs. It's sponsored by Foresight as well, so we want to be able to make sure they flow on. Just a couple of little I suppose housekeeping. If you want to become a member of Harness Breeders Victoria, and we encourage everyone to. We've had people from Queensland the other day, which actually through watching the show have signed up, which is just enormous. I think the lady's name was Deb, and I think well done to you. Harness Breeders Victoria, just $55. It's open to all. It'll go through till next year. Unlike a lot of memberships that are getting touted around at the minute, you'll still get value for money out of this one. It won't be like you can't go to a racetrack and the likes. You'll still be able to breed, and there's a lot of other offers. And part of that offer, we want people to go to the Facebook page. So this is on Campbell's comments. If you're watching through that, please, if you're watching through Harness Breeders Victoria's Facebook page, go to their page, like it and follow it as well. We want to be able to continue to build. There's 10 episodes of this show. We may continue it on later on. We're just working to find the details of that out, but if not, there'll be lots of giveaways, lots of incentives going across that Facebook page. It's a great way for people to interact and get involved. So if you're watching on Campbell's comments, when you finish, go to Harness Breeders Victoria and hit like and hit follow as well. Hit the two of them, and you'll be able to keep up to date with all that. Trackbred is also available. The new Trackbred magazine. Unfortunately, I'll get rid of your two guys' names off the bottom of that. We won't be going that well. It's available. It's online on the website, Harness Breeders Victoria website or .com, and you go to that and download the Trackbred. It's got some terrific articles and everything else along the way there. So I think I've done all my homework, Andrew, but I might get a text message from Desiree in a little while. That's for sure. But I was moving something around then. I didn't actually want to do that either, so it's all good.
As long as Desiree doesn't send it via Messenger and make the internet crash, we'll be all right.
Oh, did you get that message last week? I wasn't sure. if you got that.
I got the message, Paul. Yeah, loud and clear.
I
just thought I'd share the information for the viewers. Do not send Paul a messenger message while he's doing one of these.
I get very nervous, and we actually crashed just prior to me hitting the go live button, so it does get nervous when we got iffy reception from time to time. But anyway, we're up and going. Carry on from the last show. We were talking about the cockies are out today. We can hear them through the audio too, because I can hear them in the back, but that's okay. We're outside, and it's been a beautiful day here. Spring is coming. They're in full bloom, the cockies. Spring is in the air now. We're a long way off it, because although we're bathed in sunshine, it's fast running out too. Beck might be aware of that more than you, Andrew, at the minute. Times are changing. Like, we're going through a harsh winter and all the rest. We finished off with you guys last time with broodmares and the foals on the ground, and weanling. Unfortunately, we're not really in that weanling time, but I think we might try and continue it through that process of, as the foals get that little bit bigger prior to weaning stage. If we sort of carried on from that stage there, like, how important is it to be aware of both mares' scores, your body score of your mares, and then also your foals continuing on?
Perfect. You want to go?
You want me to talk about that one?
You can go.
Yeah, I think, look, I mean, last time we talked about the mare, and, you know, the mare's now foaled, and we've got a foal at foot, and we sort of talked a little bit about the feed and what you choose as far as the feed goes, for the foals to start eating on. You know, there's things that sort of pop up that people probably don't think about, and they're issues that we see, or I see more out in the field. There's a lot of people that have just one mare that has a foal, which is terrific, but, you know, we talk about socialisation, and they're better if they're in a herd environment. So, you know, a couple of mares with a couple of foals. A lot of people think it's just for, you know, the foal to have a friend to play with, but a lot of that's actually got to do with the foal running around and hardening up its bones and, you know, that sort of thing. So that play time is pretty crucial to producing a sound racehorse later on as well. So, keep that in mind, that if you've only got one mare and you're breeding it, that's fine. Try and find someone else that you can share your mare with theirs. Go halves and halves. You look after theirs for a couple of months, they look after yours for a couple of months. But then as the foals get going, they'll start eating the feed with their mum. That's great. If the mares are doing too well and you want to cut the mares' feed back and you want the foals to still eat, we can do something called creep feeding, where you set up essentially a yard or an area in your paddock that the foals can get in and out, but the mares can't. Even in the Hunter Valley, some of the big farms will actually have pens that the foals come into the pens and they get individually fed, and then once they finish, then they put them back out with the mares. So that's something to keep in mind with your mares and foals, that again, we talked about the pasture last time, where you live. People were talking about living in Gippsland versus living northern Victoria. The pasture's very different, the climate's very different. So keeping in mind those sort of things with your foals too. And again, if the mares are doing too well, but you want to push the foals along a little bit, then creep feeding's certainly beneficial for that. Anything you want to add to that?
No, sort of going on from last week, last time we were here, certainly it starts with that optimal nutrition of the pregnant and lactating mare. So we've now got the foal on the ground. We know the foal's about 10% of its weight. But we know that bone mineral concentration is only about 17% of its mature weight, or mature content. So it's very immature, and feeding in those first few months of life certainly has a big role to play in developing that skeletal health. So from a body maintenance point of view, grouping them according to where their body condition is, that's probably the most important thing. And as Andrew said, let them move around. That's really key to getting their bones nice and strong early on. And don't be afraid of letting them be a little bit ribbier and a little bit finer. They don't need to be chunky. So going back to where we said last time, really making sure that we have body condition scoring using the same scale, using a video or photo log if you can, is a really way to do it if you're a bit green in that sort of space of doing that.
One of the things I found, a lot of the feedback that I got from people in the industry, and it was that body score and the foals, the 10%, and how important that was. And by the sounds of it, to continue with your foal and trying to get your foal optimum through the weanling and then through the yearling stage, it's every bit as important to continue that along that way.
Yeah, absolutely. So not only from how they look, we want slow, steady growth. We don't want peaks and troughs. So we do want to be managing it all the way through, from the time the foal hits the ground through, as the mare starts to, milk is very digestible. We're talking 98% digestible. But obviously as that starts to decline and the foal starts to eat more rather, then mineral requirements change a little bit. So supplementary feeding, whether it's a fully fortified feed or a balancer type pellet, becomes really important.
Yep, and to do it in a controlled manner.
Correct.
You've got to tell me back when you're going to throw a slide up too, because
fine.
we don't have everything set up quite the same way as we did last time. We've had a couple of people interested, Andrew, about creep feeding and how involved that is.
Well,
how do you do it?
It's not terribly hard. It's making an area in your paddock or in a corner of the paddock where you can use some portable round yard panels or some cattle panels or something like that, and just putting a bar across at a height that the foals can get under. It's wide enough for the foals, but it's high enough the foals can get under it and get in to be fed, and then go back out once they're done. But you don't want the mares getting in eating that feed either. So look, some people make them really fancy. At the end of the day, 3 or 4 panels in a corner is enough to get the foals in, and then you can set their feet up and away they go. So not a hard thing to do.
I'm fortunate enough in a different job that I do on my horse, Dennis, and you go to some of the biggest studs there are, and don't worry about trying to be elaborate about how you do it. I can guarantee it's pretty much a couple of poles in the ground and a high one for the foal to get under safely. And even that safely part, once the foals work out, they can get in under. They don't mind ducking. They might have a growth spurt. They'll still duck in under there. They know they can get a feed without mum. So yeah,
and I think it's a really important thing before weaning as well, because we want them well and truly eating before we take them away from mum.
Yep.
Otherwise we get that deceleration of growth at weaning, because we start to reduce calories if the foal's not used to eating something else, not only from a calorie point of view, but protein and trace minerals. So that is the real main purpose of getting them eating, and using creep feeding to do that prior to that weaning.
And then it's not as big a shock on their system once they're thrown out on their own, basically.
Yeah, and we keep that slow, steady growth happening, and we maintain gut health as well. We know that weaning is stressful, so we don't want to end up with gut health and having an impact on them and their growth rate. And then when they start to eat again, sometimes they have a big growth, a fast growth curve, and that can certainly be attributed to some developmental orthopedic disease. Absolutely.
One thing I'll just quickly say to a couple of our common people coming in, if you're going to use a pseudonym, you're not going to win a prize because pseudonym, is that the right word? Alias anyway. Murphing. I appreciate everything you're doing, but if you're a member, could you at least send a direct message to the Harness Breeders Victoria of your real name for us, because unfortunately we can't give you a prize because you won't come up as a member, I don't think, as Murphing, but if you could do that, that'd be really good. But we appreciate all your feedback, but especially as well trying to get the explanation of creep feeding. So hopefully that sounded pretty good for you. Holly Mitchell, Andrew Soper has put a few love hearts, hands up, and the likes. Not sure what all that's about, mate, but you might be becoming a rock star by the sounds. I don't know, mate. So it's
Holly, hope you're well.
It's all good. And Jared Maloney, we are at the one of the committee people's property here, Elizabeth McLean and Chris Fazanozio, and they're doing a lot of building. We would love to have been in a different shed this time. We're not in our other spot because Chris is going to the races very shortly, so it's a multi-purpose place. And they raise a pretty good cockatoo here, as well as it might be a scenic place, but they've got the odd cockatoo as well. So
they're pretty friendly.
Rightio. So we're up to weaning, and you spoke there before, Beck, about when you actually wean them, you want them eating beforehand, because it does become quite traumatic. Anyone that's probably bred horses but not been hands-on when we actually do the weaning process, it's pretty traumatic on some of them, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely more so for some of the foals. Most of the mares get along with life just fine.
They're pretty happy to see the end of them.
Yeah. But yeah, certainly with the foals, and once again, having some paddock companions is beneficial from a management point of view at that time.
Yeah. And do you regulate as soon as you wean them? Should you change their feed, or do you just try and keep it a little bit more structured through this, say, creep feeding and the rest? Or
yeah, certainly. If you've been creep feeding, you're still on that rising, steady plane of nutrition.
Yep.
You don't want a massive change right at weaning, and Andrew can probably speak about that a little bit more as well.
Yeah, look, it's just a gradual increase as their bodies change with weight more than anything else. So as they get bigger, and I've brought along a dipper today. It's important when you look at the feed that you're feeding, there'll be a recommendation of a weight to feed a horse at its different weight. So if you don't have a set of scales that you can weigh, then get hold of a weight tape and get an idea, because that's a 2 litre dipper, so that's 2 litres of fluid that dipper will hold. So if it's a 2 litre ice cream container, it's still the same volume, but for a product like Breed and Grow, that dipper there, it holds 1.2 kilos. Now a lot of people will tell me they're feeding 1 kilo dipper. It's not 1 kilo, because the bulk density of every product you feed is going to be different. So whether you feed a pellet or you feed a textured feed, it's going to be a different weight in that dipper. So a textured feed in this dipper holds about 800 grams, so there's quite a bit of difference. So when you're feeding for optimum nutrition, you need to weigh your dipper. So if you've got something that's not one of the branded ones that the feed companies have, and most of the feed companies have this particular brand of dipper, so they're all a 2 litre dipper, get a set of scales, get the kitchen scales out, weigh your feed, make sure you're feeding as you should. The other part of that is that if you are overfeeding what you need to, it's costing you money. So if we say feed a kilo a day, then feed a kilo a day. Don't feed 1.2 kilos.
Yeah,
'Cause
overfeeding.
It's going to cost you money.
And overfeeding can
And it's
be...
overfeeding the stock as well. So then that's going to run you into more trouble with your stock when you're trying to produce good sound horses. So that's all important. So yeah, keep an eye on them. Obviously, there's lots of different ways of weaning. Probably a more popular way these days. Chris has got a side door open on his float there. Should we yell out to him?
Hey, Chris, door on your float's open. Other side. Sorry, we are live. We're live. We're just saving it. No one knows about it, Chris. We didn't tell anyone, mate.
The strap is in trouble for that one.
but this is the beauty of live TV.
It's live, doesn't get better than that.
It's all good.
So yeah, look, the weaning side of it, probably a more popular way that I see these days is, the old, or not old, but a way a lot of people do it's bring the mare and foal into the stable, take the mare out, the foal's in there, it might have a buddy in the stall next door and so on, and that's been a way that's been very popular for a long time, but we probably see more people now will put all the mares and foals in a good sized paddock that they want the foals or the weanlings to be in, and then they'll just take a mare out today, then they'll take another one out in a few days, and then they'll slip a nanny into the paddock. So it might be an old retired racehorse gelding, an old mare that has passed her producing days, and they'll just keep taking the mares out over however many there was, and the foal's like, where'd mum go? Well, she's gone, but it's nowhere near as traumatic as locking them in a box. The other thing that we didn't cover before too is, if for whatever reason your horse has, or your foal has to have some sort of surgery, have a good chat with your vet about the surgery, because we don't want them locked up for too long. Again, like I said before, if you've got one mare with one foal, it's better to be out with another mare and another foal, so the foals run around and get that concussion into their bones and their joints. Same thing if they've had to have surgery for whatever reason on any part of their body, really, they've got to be confined for that surgery to work. But the sooner you can get them back out and running around, the better you are again. So little things like that, keep in mind, consult with the vet or the surgeon that, is working on that issue as to how long or, what exercise you can start doing as soon as you can to get them mobile again, to get that concussion into their bones.
So one thing about these seminars and webinars, I suppose, is a better way of putting them, because it was going to be a giant seminar and we try and get as many people as we can, but I think this way works better myself, that people can get involved. Everything you guys recommend sort of flows on or goes backwards as well, like over both lots of what we've been able to do. And next week we're talking with Kath McIntosh about OCDs. Yep. But from a feed point of view, at this very stage now, the importance of having the right feed, and what you just said then, Andrew, that if a horse is boxed and boxed for a long period of time, that's your number one concern. You need to have them on a balanced diet, don't you?
Yeah, you do, and you've got to be careful what that diet is when they're boxed too. You don't want too much weight on them, but you want them to be getting the right nutrition to support their growth, but you don't want them getting too much energy to where they're jumping out of their skin in the box either, and they hurt themselves again. So there's a bit of management involved in that side. It's just been a bit smart, but talking to your vet, the vets are used to dealing with it, and if you're not sure, then give us a call and we can help sort out a program to help you through that time as well. But the sooner you can get them out running around, the better.
The better. If Kentucky Equine, Beck, have they done research into it and to the, I suppose, some of the issues and different feeding styles that probably help younger horses?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess during that weanling sort of feeding period, so from between sort of weaning, say 5 months, 5 to 6 months, and the 12-month period, I guess it's the biggest risk period for the development of developmental orthopedic disease and bone disease cases. So Kath will go into that more sort of next week. Pick the correct feed for the energy. So, we don't want to be feeding necessarily high starchy feeds at this time. We know that there's a high correlation between high glycemic index, so which will happen with a higher grain feed, and OCD development. So that's one thing.
Yep.
We also know that there's a higher incidence of OCDs that happen with heavier foals or heavier weanlings. So that can be obviously problematic and not where we want to go. So certainly having your mineral nutrition, like we spoke about last time, so those trace minerals,
Yep.
copper, zinc, manganese, those ones really important because skeletal health is massive, sort of during the first 12 to 18 months of life. Yeah.
We've struggled a little bit to get off mares and foals. Like we're meant to be talking about weanlings and yearlings, but just we say about creep feeding when they're locked in a box and the rest. Do we monitor the mare as well? Do we have to cut her feed back, and do we do that through body score or just through common sense?
Well, it depends a little bit on when we take the foal away, what her body condition is. So if she's still got plenty of condition on her, because we've been feeding her with the thought in mind to produce good quality milk, that's fine. She'll taper off milk production and go from there. If she's a bit on the skinny side after lactation, then you probably want to feed her up a little bit. But that she then goes back to being that ordinary mare.
Yep.
So the maintenance mare again, even if she's in foal again for those first few months.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. Okay.
Yep. So I guess from a weanling point of view, a weanling that's being fed a grass, hay, and let's say a grain, say oats, typically will only be getting about 40% of its calcium intake. So that's not necessarily ideal for skeletal health. So that's where we use these either balancer pellets or fully fortified feeds rather than just a hay and just a grain.
Just a hay, just a grain. Murphing. I'm going to leave this one for you, Beck, because it's a word that I know I can't get out.
Okay.
She's asked, I shouldn't say she, I'm presuming it's she, but we could get into trouble there, has asked, what is OCD? We will be touching off next week with Foresight and Dr. Kath McIntosh next week. The whole show will be on OCD.
Yeah, I think it's a good one for Kath.
But you can pronounce the actual word as what it stands for.
I am not going to. My mouth is too frozen at this point.
It is a very big, it's basically bone issues, isn't
Correct.
it? It's not necessarily, people seem to think it's a bone splint. It's not always a splint.
No.
But
yeah, and an issue in the cartilage as well. So, and I'm sure Kath will actually have some images for you next week as well. And look, some of them do resolve, so it's not the worst thing, but certainly we do want to avoid it if possible.
Absolutely. Yep. So then we go to we've got our weanlings and we put them on a structured feed.
Yep.
Does what you're going to do with them depend on how you feed them?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a seller, if you're someone that wants to sell yearlings and you want them that little bit bigger, and you've got to be careful how I say this, you're not as worried about the outcome because effectively sale day is your grand final. But I mean, you still want them to be able to win. You want those horses winning their next races, as compared to say someone like myself who purely wants to race them. Or do you think they should always be on that same structured feed?
I think it's probably something you needed to decide earlier. So now is not the time to decide that. You want to decide that early on so you can set your growth curve, if you like. Otherwise, you're going to all of a sudden have this massive
peak
growth phase. Certainly important things, quality is more important than quantity. And so we throw that around all the time, but it's very, very true when it comes to protein. A high quality protein is much more effective with the amino acids that it delivers, particularly lysine, which is sort of the one most people will hear about. That's the one we have a lot of, the first one to get, I guess, deficient, if you like. So that's where, quality becomes really important. Protein is not something to be scared of.
Yep.
Some people are frightened of protein, that it's going to cause these bone issues, and that's just not the case. That comes from too many calories, too much energy, too much heavy body on little legs. Yep.
So there's so many other factors. So you said you should be, so if you're thinking about selling a horse as a weanling or even as a yearling, you should be feeding potentially a little bit differently, basically once the foals are on the ground.
Yeah. So start yourself early.
Andrew's got nothing to say. He was almost
going to. He was going to say something.
Trying to keep warm.
It has got a little bit fresh. We were in the sunshine.
The sun's disappeared behind the trees now, so it's got a bit chilly. But no, I think you know, the sales years ago used to sell them by the kilo. Pretty much was the old saying that, you know, the bigger and the fatter they were, the more money you got for them. But that has changed in more recent times to where people want more of an athletic looking horse going through the sales that's balanced. You know, and probably the difference between a homebred going to keep it to race themselves and a commercial product, I suppose, is that the commercial ones get brought up for the sales, or we call it peaked for the sales if you like, so they, you know, look, you know, big and strong and ready to go, where the ones at home are still big and reasonably strong but just haven't been pushed quite as hard. But, you know, the difference between the two, when you're preparing a sale horse, it's only prepped up for, well, everyone does it a bit different these days, but, you know, the 6-week prep is pretty much gone now. People are pushing it out to sort of 12 to 16 weeks, so it's a more gradual increase in body conditions, so it's not stressing the body anywhere, which has been more beneficial. And then, you know, when those horses go on to be broken in to be started to become race horses as such, they don't have the issues that they used to. And at the end of the day, the cost in feeding a horse over 16 weeks is to trying to jam it all into him over 6 or 8. It's pretty much the same, because you're just doing it more gradually.
Yep, a much more controlled manner.
More controlled and a lot safer, and the horses handle that increase in the feed a lot better over a longer period of time too. So mentally and physically, they do a lot better over a more gradual preparation. And that doesn't mean they've got to be boxed for 12 or 16 weeks. Plenty of people started out in the paddock, they might bring them in for a week, put them back out for a couple, bring them back in, and then finish off that last 6 or 8 weeks doing a full-blown, you know, stables, walkers, exercise, you know, plenty of grooming and stuff like that.
Beck's got a couple of things up there at the minute, but it's just a good question, and it gets back onto what I was thinking here. Steve Johnson just said that whether selling or keeping, you want the best for your horses, family, and all involved. But I think what you guys are saying is that if you're, and I might be wrong, but if you're actually there to sell, that's your primary business. Your grand final comes a lot earlier potentially than what you're doing. Like if you've got a yearling in a paddock, he doesn't have to be ready for another year, whereas you want those horses not necessarily ready to race, but at a different stage. Is that fair? Is that the way you guys are both sort of saying?
Yeah, look, it used to be a big focus, to be honest, Paul. Back, you know, years ago, like I said, people would buy them by the kilo, was the saying. You know, the bigger and fatter and shinier they were, the better. But, you know, the risks that came with that have, you know, become more aware to everybody. So everyone's backed off and they're producing a more, you know, saleable type product that the trainers can go and not have the issues with. So there's not a lot of difference now between a horse that's kept on a farm to race themselves versus something that goes through the sales, really, other than the one at home hasn't got the big glossy shiny coat and it's probably, you know, 30 kilos lighter maybe than the one at the sales. But the ones at the sales are just fit looking. They're trying to sell an athlete, and the trainers are going to buy, you know, an athlete.
Yep. Do you potentially, you know, the old saying, when people get horses back from the sale, some people will break them straight in because they're used to being boxed and handled, and traditionally it's just the way I think a lot of people do. Then you hear other people that say, no, just throw them out in the paddock and forgot about them and let them get all that hard feed out of their system. The way you guys are talking, that's potentially a little bit dangerous if you do that, because then you're going to have that, like that peak and trough. You're going to have a massive trough. Is that, am I reading it correctly?
Yep, absolutely. And I mean, not only just from a growth point of view, but certainly from the vitamin and mineral nutrition point of view. I mean, you always need to keep that up to them. Their skeleton is still developing. Then we go from sort of weaning to 12 months, then we go 12 to sort of 18 months, 18 to 24 months is sort of our set growth phases. And, you know, the horse's skeleton isn't fully mature till sort of 6 years of age. So we certainly don't want to reduce that vitamin and mineral nutrition, particularly those trace minerals, by turfing them out just onto a paddock. I mean, forage and grass is great, but we still want to be monitoring body condition as well.
It's a little bit of an old style theory. So off the back of that, are we better off in a way to ask the preparer of the horse when we've bought it, what actually is that horse been getting fed, and potentially keeping them on that and then weaning them over to your feed? Is that like instead of having this massive shock of leaving a sale ring and then coming home to someone's place and going, completely, from Barastoc to paddock full of oats or something to that extent where they've got no idea?
Look, and people do ask the question, and there's a little plug for Kath right here. She actually did up a brochure for horses that went through one of the sales last year and
Bathurst,
put on the brochure what feed they'd been on, the amounts, when they were wormed, when they were vaccinated, when they were shod. She put the whole lot on there, so when you bought the horse and you got that information, you knew exactly what had been going on. So, hat off to Kath for doing that. It was terrific. Look, and people ask, and people just take them home and go, well, it was on oats, I'm going to now feed it pellets, or, everyone changes to suit themselves. But when you change it suddenly, then you're creating problems too. So
that's what I was going to ask.
A more gradual change is most certainly better. If the farm fed a particular brand and you're not particularly fond of that brand, that's fine. But make it a gradual change.
Yep.
Over, to your preferred brand of feed that, works for you and that you're happy with, that's fine. But just make it a very subtle change.
Sorry, Andrew, you weren't even on camera then. You tell me all this stuff really well. Beck was lucky.
Can't see me shivering if I'm not on camera.
Was lucky. I was actually taking everything you said in. It's not, back to the feed people, it's not bad manners to have 3 or 4 different products, people's brands, I suppose, in your feed shed. I think, people say, what do you feed? And we say Barastoc because, and rightfully so, Barastoc and Kentucky Equine are sponsoring this show, so we're going to plug them to the cows come home. But it doesn't matter if you have some of these other product bags in. It's not like you're committing the cardinal sin and you're going to get 50 lashes or anything like that. That's you're not going to be in that much trouble, Andrew.
No, look, and I think, and people have contacted me from the last talk that we did, and, through their location or wherever it is, we can work with what's available in their feed store. It doesn't have to be our product, but we can certainly ask them what is available in their store, and if they don't have our particular product there, we can steer them in a direction of something that will do the same job for them, a different brand. They're all pretty similar. There is some subtle changes to it. So we can get the job done with what's available and what's on hand. Like we said last time, if you live in Mildura, to be able to buy good grass hay is damn near impossible. Well, we can work with cereal hay and we can work with lucerne hay because we know it's available there. And we'll just change the hard feed according to what's available on pasture that's there as well. So we can work around what you've got that's available. You don't have to feed exactly what everybody else does, but we can work with the individual farms to make it work for them. The
number one thing by the sounds is get sound advice, and then the other thing I think is also talk to the person. If you are going to buy a yearling, and we've got a question from Jared Maloney in a sec, if you are going to buy a yearling from the vendor, do yourself a favour, stay on that same feed at least for a bag anyway. I mean, it's you go and spend $30,000 on a yearling and you come home and you say, well, that's it, you just got to eat what I'm going to give you. It's detrimental to your $30,000.
Yeah. And I think too, I know I work with a couple of the big standardbred operations here in Victoria, and I know big trainers go and visit those young horses from weaning right through to them going to the sales. They want to see the growth, they see the feed program, they see the whole history of that horse before they actually put their hand in their pocket to buy it. So don't be afraid to go and have a look at what people have got on offer for sale too at an early age and see how it grows out for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jared Maloney, he's actually sent me through sales are pretty stressful for young horses. Do they need any different feed or additives when they get to that sales time? Do they need extra? Do they need even calming products or something along those lines, or not? No, you think just keep them on the same feed as what you would even at home?
Yeah. I think completely changing it at the sales is a little bit dangerous. You're much better to keep it as close as possible to what they're used to. That's going to keep them eating. I mean, certainly if you're avoiding some of your really high non-structural carbohydrate feeds, anyway, so you're deriving your calories a lot from fat, fibre, those sorts of things. The horse may be a little calmer anyway, because it's, glycemic index is a little lower. Look, you can look at adding supplements like your calming supplements and stuff in if you need to, but most of the time, not if they're prepared well. It's you don't want to add something to their feed that isn't going to turn them off the feed, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So don't introduce anything new, and try and keep it as much as possible.
Preparation and routine.
Yeah.
You get to the sales, they're in and out of boxes, they're with their mates. So, when you go to the sales, have them beside their mates still that they're used to having at home.
Yeah.
Keep it all the same. Get them used to taking their mate out of the stables and home and out for a while and take it for a walk and bring it back. The more you get them used to that sort of a routine of what's going to actually happen at the sales, then the better off you're going to be. Preparation. We have trials for racehorses for a reason, to get them used to going and being geared up and going around with other horses on a track, so that when they get to racing, they're used to it.
Yeah. You actually threw me then. I had a question and I've lost it because I actually started reading some of the next questions. And one of the questions here is, what is calming supplements from Murphing? It's a mouthful and a half.
Whoever that person is.
It is. She is definitely a she. It's okay. So I won't get into trouble for that because she's actually typed back onto that. But there's lots of products out there. They work in varying ways. I'm sure Kentucky Equine, they would sell a few of them. Should probably. Is that one of the ones on the list?
No,
that's not it. I wasn't sure. No. But there is plenty of products out there. But it's possibly something a little bit different to what we're on about today, isn't it? In a way, but.
Yeah, and I mean, certainly, look, aside from adding a calming supplement in, like we said, routine, fine, giving them lots of things like hay. I mean, them eating hay, they actually produce, vitamin B as a byproduct of that, and that is one of the things that if they become deficient, they can become a little bit more anxious. So lots of hay is a good thing, and it keeps them busy. Yep. Whilst they're in their box, they've got something to do, not fussing around as much.
And not stressing it.
Correct,
again.
Yeah.
And Jared Maloney actually has said here, and I'll just read, these webinars are pretty far-reaching. Welcome Revel Douglas. I saw Revel there before. He's from New Zealand.
Revel. Good old Revel from an opposition feed company in New Zealand. Good on you, Revel. Hello.
Could have...
We love the opposition watching. That's good.
I've just been given a message.
He trains a few harness horses, young Revel. He goes all right.
Just been given a message that we're down, but we are still going, so we're going to keep going. I appear to be still up and everything, so I'm not sure. Yep, I'm getting the heads up from the Master in Chief behind us. At what point of time do we stop treating them as young horses, weanlings, yearlings, and start to consider them as racehorses? We've spoken about the sales commodities, but there's be a lot of people here that are home breeders wanting to make sure that is there a set time, or does it just go with their patterns, with their work and that, Andrew?
Yeah, look, your diet, obviously, once they start becoming a racehorse, their energy requirements change. So your trainer's going to start implementing, a racing feed program for that horse. Which is, higher energy, but it's still going to have all the vitamins and minerals and things that they need to still grow. Like Beck said before, they really don't stop growing until they're like a 6-year-old. So we've got to, look after those horses while they're particularly racing as 3-year-olds. There's still a lot going on in their joints and stuff too. So, but yeah, so the feed requirement, it's going to change because they're working more, so the energy is going to increase. But the racing feeds are designed to support that growth as well. So when you change, your horse from being in the paddock or broken in or having come from the sales, and it goes to the trainers, when they put them onto those feeds, that's all taken into consideration. So, you can't really go wrong. So yeah, it's pretty well taken care of. Every feed company's got plenty of nutritional backing behind it. Barastoc, we're really lucky to be associated with Kentucky Equine Research. They've got some great facilities overseas where they actually, take the horses from a yearling, break it in, take it to a racetrack. They've got their own research facilities there. where they follow that right through. So the research that's behind our feed will support, those horses right through that period of their life.
Absolutely, and I think there are a couple of really good websites. Both websites are quite intuitive, but it is well worth going and visiting the Kentucky Equine because I love how they name. Every horse has got a name, and they actually have their purpose. And I mean, might sound a little bit sinister, but they actually their purpose is designed there, but they're well and truly looked after and the like. So which is really good. Beck, you've got some research there as well that we must cover off on with some of your slides.
we don't have to. We can put them up.
At the end, or
we can put them up at the end. Yeah.
Have we covered off on most of those things?
Yeah, we've covered off most of it. So really, looking at when they do start to work as well, and we've covered off how bone develops a little bit as a weanling and coming into a yearling. But bone is very much sort of use it or lose it.
Yep.
So it's a dynamic tissue. If a horse is using it, it grows, it hardens, the density improves. If it is not used, so when they're being boxed or standing around for long periods of time, then it starts to demineralize, and obviously that is problematic from a skeletal point of view. So making sure that you've got that vitamin and mineral nutrition no matter how you decide to feed your horse, and keep it similar. I guess that's the key thing. So don't swap from this advice to that advice to that advice. So pick something and follow it on through.
A random question that I get asked a lot of time with feed, how long does it take for it to change over? There's a lot of, I would imagine, myths that, you come in and Paul Campbell tells you how good his feed is. It's much better than Barastoc's, Barney Barastoc, and he says it'll work straight away. And you come back in a week and he says, have a look at how good they're improving. It's got nothing to do with the difference in, we're here 3 weeks ago and it was freezing cold and the sun's out today and they start kicking their coat out the shortest days over. It has nothing to do with that. It's all got to do with the feed. How long does the feed start to take to start?
I think one of the things that's really tricky, particularly at this time in a horse's life or any time in the horse's life, a lot of the things that feed is doing you can't see. So, obviously you can see body weight, you can see body condition, so it's easy to monitor those things. You can see coat condition, but you can't see skeletal health. You can't see those things that a lot of these vitamins and minerals are actually doing until you end up with a problem. So from being able to say you can see a difference, you might be able to see a difference in coat health or something like that, or behaviour in some instances. But a lot of the benefits of good nutrition you don't see.
Yeah, and so it's an immeasurable timeline.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's one of the things we're sticking with, people that know what they're selling and know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
It is beneficial. We haven't had any more questions, but we're still live and everything's still working. So hopefully our viewing public are still there.
It's cold.
It is cold. We've done a good job. I think we've covered off
the hoodie on.
Most of it. Well, the Barastoc hats that I was given, and I did have a camera on me, but I've taken it off. And they've got a lot of holes in the back of them, Andrew.
They're good for summer.
They're no good for follically tested people like myself, that's for sure.
Not summer in Romsey
today. Just a very quick one. How much does it affect this climate change? The difference between Bendigo and Romsey today was probably only 2 or 3 degrees, but there's this nip in the air here in Romsey. The nip won't be there. It will still be there. You're lying if you say it's not, because Chris will come home tonight and say it was cold at Bendigo, but it's just not in the air as long as what it is here. Does that affect how much you should or shouldn't feed your horses? Like, does that, especially coming into winter and then going out of winter, I mean, the difference is once you're in the middle of winter is not that bad, but in the next couple of weeks things are really going to start to change. We might get 25, 30 degree days in Bendigo. Here might not get above 20.
Yep.
Yeah, I like how that was just saying to me.
You started speaking.
It's like in winter everybody puts a bit of weight on because you eat because you're cold. So horses
I did a close-up of you just then. I don't know how that worked.
So this kind of climate here at the moment, you get more cold time per 24 hours than what you do in Bendigo.
Yeah.
You might get a frost tonight and we'll get close to it, but come 10 o'clock you're going to be 12 degrees and we're still going to be 6. So horses down here will still eat more. But at the moment we haven't really got to spring. It's getting close, the grass is still pretty watery, so they still need a drier fibre. You know, one of the questions I got from the talk the other day is that their horses were eating the pine posts. They're just looking for some fibre. There's no hay out in the paddock, so they're going to the post for a bit of dry fibre, which, you know, if your posts are full of arsenic, it's probably not ideal if you've got race horses, but good steel posts like these ones behind us are pretty good. So, you know, in this area at the moment, we've still got to be very, you know, conscious that we're feeding them some good grass hay, a drier fibre, you know, type product. Where up in your area, they're getting a bit more of the spring grasses starting to kick in just a little bit more now, so they don't need as much grass hay. So there is some differences, but, you know, growth-wise, you won't see a great deal of difference between the two, because at the end of the day, they're still going to turn out the same because we've fed them properly.
Fed them properly from the start. Grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. That horse behind us is living proof of that. Got the head underneath the rail and eating on the other side. We're definitely back up. We did go down for a couple of seconds. We apologise for that. Murphing. The bucket will be a members draw in a couple of seconds. We'll get to that. Shelley Wicks, what are you recommending to feed for weanlings and yearlings? We have covered off on that just about, but what do you guys, is there a product? And Beck's going to get it up for me now.
I'll put this little slide up here. So really, there's not one hard and fast way to feed. So like we sort of mentioned last time, forage is going to be your best base. So grass, hay, chaff, other digestible fibre sources like your beet pulp, really good options. And then we pick the feed according to how much or how many more calories that horse needs. So you might go with a fully fortified feed, which is designed to be fed in several kilos per day. You might go with a pellet, which is a smaller feed in terms of the size of the pellet, or you might go with a cube, which is slightly larger. It's a personal preference. You might decide to not go with one of those and go with a grain. So, you know, from a economical point of view, or if you've got growing something on your own property, you might be feeding oats. And if you're going with oats, that's fine, but you do need to balance it with your minerals, sort of like we discussed last time. Or if your horses are doing really, really well, pick a balancer pellet. So that's minimal calories with your high quality vitamins and minerals in there. So there's a few up on the screen. So, you know, the KR Stud Balancer, your low GI cube, or your Breed and Grow, which, you know, we spoke about a little bit last time as well.
Very good. So yeah, we've got all those on there. So hopefully, Shelley, that will help you out. Yes, Steve Johnson. I reckon Andrew is well and truly loving the weather. He's actually shaved the beard off from last week, and I think he's
bring back the beard.
He could be regretting that. All right. There hasn't been a lot of other questions. Yes, it is a great pop behind us, Jared. We agreed it's been doing a good job while it was eating, while Andrew didn't even know what it was doing behind him. Shelley Wicks, you're more than welcome. That's satisfaction, and we've got to thank you straight back for answering the question. So well done to that for you, Beck. Right, we have to get a couple of winners. We've got a couple more episodes. So what I'll actually do is I'll throw these episodes up, and they came up just now. So you guys can get yourselves organised with that. In other words, you can have your little shake, Andrew, if you'd like to warm up. It's
do a
fine.
few star jumps.
Next Sunday, I'm going to be with Kath McIntosh talking OCDs and bone disease in standardbreds.
Does this need to be on camera?
Yes, it does. Just wait 1 second. Patience used to. This hard work, and I tell you, this is a tough gig. Actually, I don't reckon. I got a funny feeling. I might be wrong. Just hang on. No, we're good. I didn't think we had audio. So Kath McIntosh next Sunday at Kyabram. I will be back there with Kath, which will be terrific for talking about OCDs. The week after, we're getting pedigree matches with Brett Coffey, and it's great that Neville Starter got involved as well. I'm not sure of the prize next week with Foresight. It will have something to do with Foresight. I haven't been told about that. Neville are donating a free service fee to Ultimate Machette. So on the August 9, tune in. If you're a harness breeder, you don't have to be logged on to watch it. You'll still win the prize. There's no worries there at all. But well done to both Alabar and Neville Stud for getting involved with that. And the week after, I'm back with Kath McIntosh for the Madigan foal technique. I recommend everyone tune in. It's a YouTube video, but Kath will discuss it. I've spoken to Craig Judd at Benstud about it. He done it to one last year and he was blown away by how it works. It is very, very unique. The reason I'm saying about that, you want to see the look of them getting from these other two that are freezing over here, is it's sponsored by Harassed Trotters. Well done to them. They're standing bold eagle. Nick Hooper, I think, half let the cat out of the bag last week, but I'm not sure if him and Pat are still talking or not. But Harassed Trotters, they are a sponsor here with Yabby Dam, and they also Harassed Trotter, and I'm pretty sure they want to go more with the breeding side of things through Harassed Trotter. So well done to all of those, and I recommend tuning into all of them, 4 o'clock on these pages. Don't forget to like the Harness Breeders Victoria Facebook page. You're back on camera, Andrew. Harness Breeders Victoria Facebook page. Like it
turn the
and
camera end on you.
Follow it. Go to Barastoc's Facebook page. Go to Kentucky Equine Research's Facebook page, and I recommend going to both those websites, which I had up there just before. Yes, Andrew, you can now draw out our winner while I throw back the websites back up there for everyone to be able to tune into and go there. Good to see Chris Lang's tuned in. Would have been good to see her. I'm not sure what Steve Johnson's about. It's okay. Lizzie's got it all sorted, so it's good. Don't do what I did.
Where's the drum roll?
Oh,
there you go.
I got it.
Roma Arthur from Swan Hill.
Well done. So Roma has won. So just so she's aware, $750. I would presume she's related to Ruth Arthur, but not 100%. No, she lives in Kerrang, so I better not be too presumptuous. Jared,
Swan Hill.
You're all. Sorry, I'm reading them Twitter comments, text messages as well that I shouldn't be doing. And they're used to freezing out there. But there's Liz is having a conversation too that's going through the Facebook feed as well. It's getting hard. $750. Well done to Empire Stallions off your choice of betting line. 4-star Shark, Heston Blue Chip. Stay hungry, and well said. And I was just hoping that Jared might have got back to me on whether or not. What was the name again, please?
Roma Arthur.
Roma
from
Arthur.
Swan Hill.
Yeah, Jared will know anyway. So, which is well done.
Well done, Roma.
She's won that, even if she hasn't tuned in. Guys, it's our last episode. We might bring one back in summertime. Actually, I did see Sue Markwell actually had a couple of comments for some episodes. So Sue, get in touch with Harness Breeders Victoria. There's a few people you'll be able to get in touch with. Pretty much, if just get in touch with this Facebook page, and they'll get back in touch with you too. So, any more ideas, we're more than happy to do it. Thank you very much, Beck, and thank you very much, Andrew. Lovely, warm day. And we must say a big thank you to Elizabeth McLean for putting up with us twice.
Absolutely.
She has to go and feed up, I think, now, which is she's done a great thing. And everyone knows Chris left the float door open, Lizzie, with
the float door open. It's all right, Chris. The gear didn't fall out.
It might be Ruth Arthur's mother, so that's a good result. Jared's got back to me, so that's all good. All right, we'll be back 4 o'clock next Sunday afternoon, live from Northern Rivers Equine, actually.
Somewhere warm.
Yep, I'll just got to remind you to don't talk for a minute while I'm playing the show ending, please. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.